Hi everyone, it's Sarah here from Sarah Gale Nutrition, and this week we're talking all about the menstrual cycle, or more specifically, how you can use your hormones to your advantage. Now, being a female, it can feel like really quite hard work. It can feel like your hormones against you. It not only on our period, when we might experience PMS on the week leading up to our period or have heavy and painful periods, but throughout the month we might notice fluctuating levels in our energy and how sociable we want to be, how irritable we are, how we react to situations. And your hormones can make you feel a little bit crazy. And if you think that, you are not the first person to say that to me. And unfortunately, you will not be the last woman to convey that to me. However, our hormones, they don't have to be our enemies. They can work with us. And that's what I want to cover today, is how we can help work with our hormones to make us feel amazing every day of our monthly cycle. So hormones, we might consider them actually maybe a negative thing because they might be associated with our sugar cravings, they might be associated with our hot flushes, they might be associated with our heavy painful periods. But that is when they are not balanced, they're not working with us. Our hormones actually can make you feel like you have a superpower you never knew you had. So estrogen is a lovely, wonderful boosting hormone. It can make you feel confident, it can lift you up, it boosts your energy throughout the first half of the cycle. Progesterone is like the yin to its yang. It's very calming, it helps you chill, and it can actually make you far calmer to maybe heightened situations, and just I'd give you that moment of zen. So what I want to go through in today's video is actually what happens during the menstrual cycle, so we have an understanding of what happens with the hormones. So you might notice that some times throughout the month you are incredibly low and you have maybe a low mood, low energy, and other times you go to the gym and you lift the heaviest weights you've ever lifted and it was easy and you surprise yourself. And actually understanding what is happening with the hormones, it can help us understand how they're contributing to maybe these symptoms, and then importantly how we can work with each phase of the cycle to get the best out of it. So let's dive in. There are 4 phases to every menstrual cycle, and the average menstrual cycle is around 28 days, but that actually can fluctuate anywhere from 21 days to 35 days, and that fluctuation is considered normal. So the below timelines are based on a 28-day cycle, but this will fluctuate personalised to you depending how long your menstrual cycle is, and that might fluctuate slightly between each cycle. So days 1 to 5 is considered menstruation, the menstruation phase, and this is when we're on our period. So it marks the first day of a new menstrual cycle, and it's the first day that we start bleeding, so it's the first day of our period. Days 6 to 14 is the follicular phase. We then move into the ovulation phase from days 15 to 17, and then days 18 to 28 are the luteal phase, and then we head back into menstruation and another cycle starts again. So there's 4 main hormones involved in each cycle which fluctuate throughout the month. So we've got estrogen, progesterone, luteinizing hormone, and follicular stimulating hormone, which is FSH for short. A lot easier for me to say. So they all cue off each other and they all create this beautiful ebb and flow throughout the monthly cycle, and they impact your mood, your energy, your social preferences and your performance throughout the month. So estrogen dominates the first half of your cycle and is responsible for the thickening of the lining of the uterus, getting it ready for pregnancy if that is going to occur at ovulation. Progesterone then takes over during the second half of the cycle and has a lovely calming, anti-anxiety, calming effect on the body. Luteinizing hormone, LH for short, so LH and FSH, follicular stimulating hormone, are produced by the brain and they're involved more around the midpoint of the cycle. So FSH stimulates the maturation of ovarian follicles, which prepares the body for ovulation. LH then triggers ovulation to happen at the midpoint of the cycle and supports the development of something called the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum then goes on to produce progesterone for the second half of the cycle. So as we have the rise and fall of the different 4 hormones throughout our monthly cycle, we can use these hormones to our advantage and understand actually, let's say progesterone makes us far calmer and anti-anxiety, and how can we use the different hormones to benefit us? So how can we change our exercise? What should we eat during those cycles? What types of tasks and social interactions should we have? So let's go through the 4 phases now. Menstruation is the first phase, and it's a time when all 4 hormones are very low at this point, so it means our energy levels can also be pretty low. The lining of the uterus is starting to be shed, which causes the bleeding, and which then also contribute to a reduction in our iron stores, so again it can contribute to lower energy levels. It is really a time for hibernation and nourishment, so think about duvet days, Netflix marathons, snuggling up on the sofa with a good book. You might also find that you want to be alone more, so actually if you do have the luxury of having a few hours by yourself without your partner, kids, family, friends, or lucky enough to have the whole day by yourself, take it, because actually really focusing on rest and relaxation at this stage can really pay off throughout the later weeks and months of the cycle. We're also more intuitive during menstruation, so it can be a really nice time to reflect on the previous month, journal what feels right and wrong in your life. It is not a time to start making changes, but it is a time to assess what might need to change. If your period falls on a day when you have to go to work, then actually trying to take it easy. So as much as you can complete easy tasks, keep stress levels low, and avoid anything too physical if you have a manual job, and avoid being the centre of attention. So it is definitely not the time to get up and present to a whole room of people. Try and focus if you can, and save maybe your tasks that you know are easy to complete for those days if you are likely to be at work on your period. Exercise intensity should also be kept very, very low. So think about things like walking, meditation. More yoga's great, but more like yin yoga, so very slow, gentle yoga, tai chi, stretching are all brilliant during this phase. And as menstruation is all about nourishment, we want to focus on getting in as much goodness as we possibly can. So really balance out the 3 macronutrients, so your carbohydrates, your protein, and your healthy fats, and include lots of veggies. And especially in winter, things like soups and stews can be incredibly nourishing through this phase. And you might want to add in things like bone broth for extra nourishment, or add in something like red meat or dark leafy greens, so spinach, kale, cabbage, because they can really help up your iron intake, which you're losing through the blood during your period. Try to limit things like caffeine, sugar and alcohol, because these can all deplete the body's resources as well. Once menstruation ends, we move into the follicular phase, and as we head out of menstruation, estrogen starts to rise, and it's really the start of the first half of the menstrual cycle. As estrogen rises, your energy does as well, so you probably find you have more capacity the further you get through your follicular phase. So it's the perfect time to start new projects. So think about things you want to change, so what you reflected on during menstruation. Is there anything you want to change, anything you want to start? If you're trying to make any healthy eating, any healthy change to your diet or lifestyle, now is the time to start doing it as your energy starts picking up. It is also now the time to start to finish and wrap up any projects that you didn't have time to before menstruation hit. As the higher estrogen levels, they also make your brain more logical. So it's an excellent plan to plan out the rest of your month and get everything organised, or even plan out the rest of your year. This is the time when actually planning, starting things anew is really, really good, and you are in your element when you do those tasks. As estrogen continues rising, you'll have more stamina, so actually you can pick up the exercise lightly, but nothing too intense. So things like light cardio, flow-based yoga and gentle jogs, but you can build this intensity as you head towards ovulation. Carbohydrates can actually be kept quite low during this phase, especially if you're wanting to lose weight. Don't cut out carbohydrates completely, because they're very important for hormone production, but focus on smaller amounts of things like starchy and fibrous carbohydrates found in vegetables. So I'm thinking generally all vegetables, but then more the starchy ones, so things like sweet potato, your root vegetables, your butternut squash, your carrots, those types of vegetables. Make sure to get enough protein as well, and also cruciferous vegetables, which are really important for detoxification. These include things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, radishes, rocket are all powerhouses. So make sure you include lots during this phase, because as the hormones start to rise, your detoxification system needs to detoxify these hormones. So really important to give it the raw materials to do that. So we come out of the follicular phase, we head into ovulation, and as estrogen peaks, ovulation hits. FSH and LH are also peak during this time, and progesterone is on the rise. So actually your hormones are pretty high, which can often be why we have more energy. And although testosterone isn't intimately involved in the menstrual cycle, it also peaks at ovulation. So you might find you have more drive, confidence and strength during ovulation. Your energy levels should be at the highest they are going to be at during ovulation. So you'll feel more confident, motivated, outgoing, social. So now is the time to schedule a night out with the girls, that work presentation or group activities, as you'll really thrive in these situations. You'll be really great at connecting and listening to people as well. So actually any tasks in your job or personal life, now is the time to do that. But avoid making too many long-term commitments, because you might regret it later on in your cycle. You feel like superwoman right now, but actually throughout the rest of the cycle, as your energy drops, you might regret making long-term commitments. You also, because your energies are higher, your testosterone's higher, all your hormones generally are high, you have more capacity for intense exercise. So if you enjoy things like HIIT or spin class, now is the time to get them in. And actually, because your testosterone is high, you might also find you get some PBs at the gym lifting weights. It is also a real time to continue focusing on those detoxification foods, so those cruciferous vegetables that we spoke about into the follicular phase, but also other foods important for gut health and antioxidant-rich foods. So things like berries, olive oil, garlic, fibre in general, and herbs and spices are all really important to make sure we can detoxify those hormones. Once ovulation ends, we move into the luteal phase, and this is where progesterone really takes over and really creates a nice chill vibe. So you might notice you're a little bit calmer during this phase. Estrogen levels dip slightly before they rise again, so you might notice a little dip in your energy before they sort of come up again, before they start to drop as we head back into the menstruation phase. So you might start out quite strong in this phase, and actually it can be helpful to split it into 2 phases. So actually maybe split it from day 18 to 23, because your energy is likely to be similar to ovulation here. And then from day 23 onwards, your energy is likely to drop. And that is because that estrogen dip rise and dip again. So maybe split it into 2 phases around your energy task. So really pay attention to your body here, and actually maybe you can start out strong with things like strength training, Pilates, and more intense maybe yoga based classes, but listen to your body as you head maybe more from day 23 onwards and pull back when needed. You also have a higher requirement for carbohydrates in this phase, so if you did reduce them during the follicular phase, now's the time to bring them back up again. Really focus on getting lots of healthy fats in, good quality protein to help reduce PMS cravings, and get in more magnesium-rich sources, so things like dark leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, dark chocolate, ideally 70% plus cacao content or higher, as these can help to relieve PMS symptoms, as well as lots of oily fish for its omega-3 content, which is a really lovely anti-inflammatory compound. You might find you have a drive for structure and order during the luteal phase, and don't be surprised if you have the urge to clean or clear out that cupboard or drawer that's been bugging you. This normally happens to me, and I think, oh, I'm in my luteal phase, as I just have the urge to clean the house and spring clean and clear out everything. It is a time when we can focus on sort of wrapping up projects, completing tasks that have been hanging around. But if time runs out, don't push it. Don't actually continue into your menstruation phase. Park them and pick them up in the follicular phase when you have a lot more energy and enthusiasm to complete them. So those are the 4 phases and what we should be doing in each of the phases to really get the most out of them. But how to start? Well, first you need to track your cycle because you need to know where you are. You can do this manually now, maybe just keep a note of your symptoms, or you can use apps and things like Flow is one that I use and I really, really love. So start by recording your menstrual cycle, so how long it lasts for. So day 1 is the first day that you start bleeding, and then day 1 of the next cycle is again when you start bleeding. So you'll then get how long that menstrual cycle was and track a good 3 or 4 cycles to kind of get a pattern. Also record how you're feeling. So actually, do you notice that change in energy? Do you notice the change in your mood? Do you notice the change in the types of activities you want to be doing? And it can really give you clues as to where you are in each phase. You can also use things like ovulation sticks and thermometers to understand better where you are throughout your cycle and when you're ovulating. And actually your ovulation, you do produce a certain type of mucus, which actually it's more like a raw egg white really. It's kind of clear and slippery, whereas on the lead up to ovulation it's a little bit thicker, whiter and drier. So actually when you notice that you have more of that fertile mucus, so a little bit like that egg white, then actually that is a sign that you are ovulating. A common question I get is what happens if you're on the pill? So the hormone contraceptive pill, depending whether you're on the combined pill or just a progesterone only pill, or this goes for things like coils, the injection and patches as well, they suppress the natural production of your hormones. So you don't get that lovely ebb and flow that we've spoken about as the rise and fall of the different hormones. Your actual own hormones remain flat throughout the rest of the month. And that is because you're getting a continuous dose of the synthetic either estrogen or progesterone that is coming through your birth control. Birth control also commonly, depending again which one, prevents ovulation by suppressing LH and FSH. And as because you aren't producing your own progesterone, you're not going to ovulate, you're not going to have ovulation. So you might not notice things like fertile mucus happening, so that egg white, or you might not notice if you're using thermometers, you might not actually get that rise. So you might not actually, if you are on the contraceptive pill, you might not actually notice a fluctuation as much in your energy, mood and performance throughout the month. So unfortunately, this kind of menstrual tracking is maybe not going to be so relevant. If you do have a bleed during your periods, you stop your pill or whatever you're taking and you have a bleed, it is important to note this isn't actually a period. It's not, because you're not getting the fluctuations in your hormones, you're not going to get that menstrual bleed. It is just a withdrawal bleed from the contraceptive pill. So this isn't actually technically considered a period, so you can't really count that as day 1 and then track your cycle from there. Another common question I get is what happens if you have irregular cycles? So the first thing is to start tracking your cycles to understand actually is there a pattern in your cycles. For example, for me, I had irregular cycles, and when I actually started tracking them, I found the pattern that actually 1 month my cycle would be about 21 days, and then the next month I would be about 30 days. But it actually alternated like that. So potentially it could be each ovary is actually ovulating at a different point. So actually tracking and seeing if there's any pattern, and check if you are within that 21 to 35 day window, because if you are, they aren't considered irregular. So actually mine, while they might have viewed, I found them irregular because I was like, what is going on? Actually, they're not really considered irregular. There is some sort of pattern. Also pay closer attention to tracking your symptoms, cervical mucus, and then use ovulation sticks or thermometers if you do want to go a little bit more in depth and understand what is going on. You can use seed cycling, which is a way to make your cycles more regular and even out the phases if they've gone a little bit astray. So the premise is that certain types of seeds during particular phases of your cycle encourage the production of the style hormone during this phase. So for example, flax and pumpkin seeds encourage the body to produce estrogen, and sunflower and sesame seeds encourage the body to produce progesterone, which you need during the second half of your phase. So what you can do is include 2 tablespoons of each during each phase. So to start with, on day 1 to 14, if your cycle is a 28-day cycle. So 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed and pumpkin seeds to encourage the production of estrogen. And then at ovulation, switch over from days 15 to 28, have 2 tablespoons each of sunflower and sesame seeds. Remember, day 1 is the first day of your cycle that you start to bleed, and then the changeover should happen at ovulation. So in this example, it's day 15, but actually track your own cycle to understand when your ovulation occurs.